feel like this month is probably the month I deviated from my TBR the most because I made my TBR wrong. I know that's a weird thing to say, but it was just wrong. So let's see what I read in the month of June. Welcome back, or if you are new here, welcome. My name is Katrina and I make bookish content here on this channel at least twice a week, and then movie reviews here at the weekend. In the description box below you will find all of my social links, including my blog on my Goodreads, where I review most of the things that I read. I don't think I've reviewed an awful lot of these yet. Need to get on that. It's on the list. It's been a weird month. So as always, I will divide my reading into ebooks, physical books and audiobooks, and I do have videos for 2 groups of these books, well, for quite a few of these books, and so I will make sure and leave those as we go along. So yeah, my June TBR was wrong. It's wrong to say that it was wrong, but I decided to put on loads of ebooks and audiobooks when I'm losing the books behind me in just a couple of days time as they're being packed up to move, and so I should have been focusing on the physical books behind me. But in case you missed it, I have a video talking all about that, so I will leave that linked up above. But yes, let's jump in. So one ebook, and this is How to Be a Woman, the Quick Reads edition by Caitlin Moran, and I have a video talking about this one, and so I will leave that up above in the description box, everywhere you need it to be. But this was a real treat, and I'm quite fine that this was my only ebook this month, because we did deviate and we did go away. So moving on to physical books, I have a video coming up where I talk about these physical books because these are library books and these are graphic novels, so they fall into a very specific category. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell, because that video will probably be the next one that comes up, but I would hate for you to miss it. So I read The Sacrifice of Darkness by Roaxane Gay and Tracy Lynne Oliver. This wasn't quite what I was expecting. I believe it is a adult graphic novel, and so it was quite different, but it was quite short, so that's okay. I'm glad I read it, but I wouldn't necessarily say that this one is for me, but I talk more about that in that video. Then I read Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, and this is by Mariko Tamaki, and I heard her talk at Book Expo, and I have Harley Quinn Breaking Glass signed by her. I've seen a few people reading this, but this one again wasn't for me. I just didn't find the characters likable. I found them believable, but I found it really hard because I only liked the characters who were kind of getting screwed over, and so I couldn't have sympathy for either of these two on the front here, and so I struggled with that a little bit. But yeah, again, more on that in that video. And then the one that I like best is the one that made me like cry and feel quite down, so make of that what you will. I read Dancing at the Pity Party, and this is a dead mom graphic memoir. I think we can safely say that my personal favorite category, and the category that's going to be sort of most accessible to me in graphic novels, is a graphic memoir. I think we can safely say that I am a fan of a graphic memoir, and so yeah, I'll just give you a very sneak peek of that one. I just love the illustrations. Like, we have all of these kind of things before each chapter, and then the actual sequencing itself is just really straightforward and clear and pretty. And I think I just really connected with that. But again, more on this one in that video. So, as always, audiobooks, biggest category. I read 2 new release audiobooks that were on my June TBR. They were on my June TBR. So I read Someone I Used to Know by Paige Toon, which I was very excited about. It came out in the UK on the 24th of June, and I pre-ordered the audiobook. I had some drama with it getting cancelled because my credit card had run out, and oh, it was a whole thing, but I got there in the end. I managed to, you know, get it that morning. And this one is set in and around where I am from. And so the audiobook narrator does a good North Yorkshire accent, probably not tainted by having lived in Denver for 5 years, but they do a good North Yorkshire accent. And it was exciting to hear these characters like going to Harrogate and going to Ripon and being at Brimham Rocks. And then we have the added layer that this one is about a foster family and looked after kids, and kids being adopted and sort of going in and out of various foster homes, which as a teacher who has, you know, seen the effect on kids firsthand, I appreciated that as well. I do feel like Paige Toon wrote this book for me. It feels very sort of personal, even though it's personal in an indirect way. And I did just love it, and I think I'm probably gonna have to, you know, give it honorable mention as some lists where it kind of just missed out because of the date and what have you, but I really enjoyed it, and I can recommend the audiobook narrator as well. And then another new release one that came out exactly the same time, so I was kind of struggling to flick back and forth between all my audiobooks. I was busy listening, but you know, more on that in other videos. I listened to My Contrary Mary, which is the new book from Brodi, Ashton, Jodi, Meadows and Cynthia Hand, who wrote the Lady Janies. I have a whole video talking about the Lady Janies series, so I will leave that linked up above. But this is the new series. This is Mary #1. I will say I think they switched out audiobook narrator. I think that a previous audiobook narrator for the Janes was better. This one just didn't have as much kind of, I want to say, whimsy about her. She kind of didn't take the funny bits and make them as funny as they could have been. I feel like the timing of the Jane narrators, they really had the timing down, the tongue-in-cheek parts. Like, you know, your narrators would point out that this is awfully late to be going to bed, and like you can say that in multiple ways and make it sound funnier, but this one had a lot of really funny pop culture references in there, like just, you know, references of like lots of different films, and they even referenced Brexit in there, which hurt just a little bit. They were like, and yeah, they said it was 5 years ago, and I was like, yes, it was 5 years ago. I was listening to this, I think on the 23rd of June. I'm like, yeah, I remember 5 years ago on the 23rd of June going and voting. And so that was interesting. I mean, this is YA comedy historical faction, and I mean, I still recommend it. I just didn't think that the narrator was as good with this one, and so maybe I should have done the physical book, who knows. And then moving on to a couple more audiobooks. The last quick reads that I had left after making my quick reads video, or during making my quick reads video, remember I read 4 out of the 6 last month, and then I had 2 left on my TBR. I actually found an audio copy of, so I listened to The Motive. Again, as I say in my actual reading vlog about this one, I think this one suffered for me because it was like a prequel to a series, so I feel like you kind of needed to know the characters, and so I don't think that this one worked as well as a quick reads book, because I think it could be a gateway into that series, but I think if you're picking it up as a quick read, you're not necessarily wanting to invest the time in that series. I mean, that's just my personal opinion, but it was okay, but I didn't really invest in the book, and I didn't find that it made me want to invest in the series or the author, which quick reads normally do. So that was different, but I was glad that I found it as an audio so that I could listen to it as well. And then we have One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston, which I did absolutely love. I was probably the only person that did not enjoy Red, White and Royal Blue when it came out. Everyone is still raving about that book. It still makes all the Pride lists, but it just wasn't for me, whereas this one really was for me. It's set in and around the Q train on the New York subway, and we have August, who you can see there with her cup of coffee, and we have Jane, who you can see there on the Q train, and both of those things are sort of pivotal parts to the book, parts of the plot, parts of the narrative. We have a diner where, you know, they make pancakes all day long. August is very sort of insecure. There's some great romance in here. There's some really funny bits, and I loved August's roommates as well. I love the fact that she's kind of in the city. She's just about to graduate. She's trying to make a life for herself, and I just like that kind of like premise and that setup. And this one is, I think people confuse her books and think that they are YA, but they are adult romance. And the fact that that August is a graduate basically and is working in a diner as well as doing her sort of last college course, I think sort of tells you that. But I really loved it. I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad that I enjoyed it after not liking Red, White and Royal Blue, because I feel like everyone hated me for not liking that one, but I can rave about One Last Stop. And then carrying on with my Pride Month reading, I read Pumpkin, which is the last in the trilogy of the Dumpling and Pudding series by Julie Murphy. Although these aren't sort of sequential, you don't have to read them in order. You do have characters who pop up from the previous books, and it was nice that we got to kind of catch up and round off with a couple of the previous characters. I would really, really kind of love to see Dumpling as an adult. So, you know, Julie Murphy, if you're listening, I would like a sort of an adult graduate type book for specifically Dumpling. But I enjoyed Pumpkin, and I mean, I just love this cover. And then in keeping with the final book in a YA trilogy, I also listened to these were literally back to back. It's so funny. The last in the Valentines series from Holly Smale, Love Me Not, and this one deals with the final sister in the family. These books are just so like glam. They're kind of like keeping up with the Kardashians if they were British and less glamorous and more grounded. And I like the fact that there's a lot to do with kind of family and friendship between the sisters in this one, and kind of the girls all start out making some mistakes and we get to see them make it right, and there's a lot of self-discovery in these books, and I really, really enjoyed them. This was the first one of the 3 that I'd done in audio. I know, right? But yeah, the previous 2 I had review copies of, and so I'd done them as ebooks, and so it was interesting hearing a narrator kind of bring what I had read to life. But I did like the narration. I thought it was good. And then finally, yeah, I have physical copies for all the rest of these, excitingly, and these are part of a video that I posted right before this one, so I'll leave that linked up above. I'll leave it in the end screen for you as well. But I was, yeah, switched over to actually read the books that are on my shelves before they get packed and shipped, and so I read The Rules by Joanna Bolouri. This one follows up from the list. I have this one as a NetGalley review copy. I have this finished physical copy, and I bought it on Audible. And so finally actually getting around to reading it and listening to it and getting it off my shelves, I found that I actually loved it. This one is set in Glasgow with a main character called Catriona, who spells her name exactly the same as me, and, you know, is an independent person who has her own thoughts and feelings and doesn't want others telling her what to do. So what happens when she has to follow the rules of engagement? I love that there was loads of familiar places around Glasgow in this one. I think this one, I need to read more from this author, and I don't know why I slept on this one for so long. But this was the success from my reading my stack of books on my shelf, because the others weren't as much of a success. I listened to Mammoth, which is YA. I kind of have just noticed that this is our main character here in her dinosaur dress. She is a fashion blogger. She is plus size, and she is also into fossils and wants to be a paleontologist. And like, this is a great setup for a book. I did really enjoy this one. This one definitely came second in my list of preferences of that stack of books that I read, but it just wasn't like, wow. It was good. I would even say it was good. The narration was good. I enjoyed the different aspects of it, and I loved the premise of it, and I think the premise was carried out really well as well, but it just wasn't memorable. And then I read is kind of a funny story by Ned Vizzini, which is also YA. This one was just too dark for me, and I go into more details about why in that other video. We're going quickly now. Then Memoirs of a Teenage Amnesiac. These two have been on my shelves for so long. Like, I know I definitely had this one when I still lived in the UK before I moved here. This one started out strong and then nothing happened, and so wasn't great. Then we have Today Will Be Different by Maria Semple, and this one felt a lot like Where'd You Go Bernadette, but the parts that I didn't like as much. I like that it takes place in the same world. I would probably like to see it played out on the big screen in a similar way to Where'd You Go Bernadette, but again, started out well and then just fizzled out. And then the kind of opposite of that, The Dinner List by Rebecca Searle. I enjoyed 5 Years From Now by Rebecca Searle. I didn't, you know, love it, but I enjoyed it. The Dinner List, however, kind of never really grabbed my attention. I would say that you know, a lot of these kind of started out with good potential. This one just didn't. I never really got into this one at all, and like, I couldn't tell you an awful lot about it now, and it's only 260 pages. Like, it had plenty of opportunity to just be a nice quick read that did something and said something. But yeah, there you go. So the reading kind of went off track a little bit, but in the right way. And those books that were on my June TBR that I didn't get to are now on my July TBR. So in case you missed that, I will leave it in the end screen. Make sure you are subscribed and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss that graphic novel reading vlog that is coming up for you. And for more information about what I am reading in July and what's happening to all my books once they get packed up. Very exciting. I will be back with a movie review for you at the weekend, and more bookish content next week. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and yeah, I will see you with those videos. Thanks for watching.